Hi folks, Louis Martin back this time talking about attempting an offence. Before I start, I'll talk about a bit of administration. So for those of you who have access to Microsoft Teams, then you will see in the General tab that when I put these short YouTube clips on, you'll be able to see them on Microsoft Teams, and you've obviously got access to all the documents in the files there. For those of you at Virgin Media, you've not got access to Teams, and now I understand that you guys have got access to Blackboard. So I'm in the process of putting things onto Blackboard, and then you'll see like a traditional Blackboard arrangement with a week, like week 1, week 2, or the dates of the weeks, and things will be put into there. Okay, back to business then. So by now then, you will have, or you should be still working through, because I know you're busy, the principal elements of a criminal offence. So the actus reus, the mens rea, the combination or the coincidence of those two. You've touched on criminal damage, homicides, and the Theft Act. Now we're going to talk about attempts. An attempt then is where a person embarks on the commission of a crime and does everything apart from completing the final act. So the threshold for somebody trying to commit a crime is very high. They've almost got to have completed it and just failed to finish off the last little bit, and then that's when they can be liable for an attempt. So an attempt is charged under section 1.1 of the Criminal Attempts Act 1981. It's only applicable to indictable offences, so offences that are tried at the Crown Court, or offences that are triable either way, so offences that can be tried at the Crown Court or magistrates. So you can't attempt to commit a summary offence only. With the criminal attempts, it is really founding with lots of case law which tells us what is the threshold. And I'll give you an example. One of the leading cases is a case of R.V. Geddes. Geddes is a sex offender who has a penchant for young boys. He gets into a school and hides in the boys' toilets in one of the cubicles. With him, he's got some rope, some duct tape, a knife, a rucksack. He's got his kit with him. It's believed that he was going to abduct a boy and abuse one. However, he's seen by teachers who alert the police. The police arrive, Geddes runs off with his kit, is arrested and is charged and convicted of attempted kidnap. His conviction is overturned because it's argued that his attempt did not go far enough. Yes, he was in the boys' toilets. Yes, he got his kit with him, but he hadn't actually grabbed hold of a boy. So that was the threshold. It wasn't enough. If we contrast that with R.V. Jones, 1990, Jones suspects his wife of having an affair with somebody who they've met on the school run. So Jones gets a motorbike helmet and a shotgun, goes to the school, sees the chap. When the chap drops his children off at school, gets in his car, Jones jumps in, points the shotgun into the man's face, and is just about to pull the trigger when the man wrestles the gun off him. And Jones is charged and convicted of an attempt murder. So if you think he has the gun, has a crash helmet, gets in the car, pushes the gun into the face of the man, and is about to pull the trigger, the man wrestles the gun away, that's an attempt, that's the threshold. So what we talk about is an act which is more than merely preparatory to the commission of the crime. And if you think about these two cases, that will give you an ideal example when you're reading about the inchoate offence of a criminal attempt. People can also be convicted of criminal attempt by attempting to commit the impossible. This is where they intended to do something. So they intend to steal, they intend to supply drugs, they intend to do something, but something happens or the facts are such where it's impossible to commit the crime. However, they had the mens rea. So they can still be liable of committing the impossible. Let's have a look in the book. So going back to this, we'll talk about the assessment criteria, which is very important for you. So in the assessment, you need to be able to define the offence of attempt, which is Section 1.1 of the Criminal Attempts Act 1981. So learn the definition in the book, in the chapter. Explain the actus reus requirement of the attempt. Again, when you're reading, make sure you cover what the actus reus is. And look at the cases. So some of the cases that are used: Boyle and Boyle, 1987. Defendants intend to commit a burglary and damage the door and are in the process of entering the house. That was sufficient. Jones, we spoke about. Explain the mens rea requirements of attempt. To be guilty of an attempt, the defendant must intend the conduct and the consequence specified in the actus reus. In Khan, 1990, which was a rape case, the defendant must intend the conduct and consequences elements of the actus reus, but it is enough for the defendant to be reckless about any circumstances elements of the AR. Right. Apply the actus reus and mens rea requirements of attempt to a given situation. So when you look at the exam scenario, you need to have a look in the scenario for evidence where people have tried to commit indictable or tribal either way offences and not succeeded. So always be on the lookout for an act which has just failed to actually commit the substantive offence, because examiners will sometimes put an attempt in to test your knowledge, and you can gain higher marks by being able to recognise an attempt. So in essence, approach the problem questions as if you're looking for an attempt. See if you can find one. Right, in summary then, the inchoate of attempt, the offence of attempt, deals with conduct preceding the commission of the full offence. It is not possible in law to attempt to commit an offence tribal summarily only. So it can only be tribal either way or indictable. An attempt requires a proof of an act, so it's got to be a positive thing. It can't be an omission. So you can't attempt something by not doing something. You've got to do something to be able to attempt it. The act must be more than merely preparatory to the commission of the full offence, and there is no watertight definition of this term. If D has done the last act necessary and possible, they will be guilty of the attempt. And decided cases may provide helpful examples. So when we talked about R.V. Geddes, and we talked about R.V. Jones, so look at those cases. The mens rea of attempt is an attempt to commit the full offence. The intention must be to bring about the consequences specified in the actus reus, but it is not clear whether purpose is required or whether foresight of virtual certainty will be enough in this context. Although intention is required as to consequences in the actus reus of the full offence, recklessness as to circumstances will suffice. If recklessness to circumstances suffices for liability for the full offence. So some offences can be committed, such as criminal damage, with intent or with subjective recklessness. The defendant may be convicted in cases where, unknown to the defendant, the object of the attempt was impossible to achieve. So remember, a person can be convicted of attempting to commit the impossible because they thought they were doing something, such as reaching into somebody's pocket with intention to steal the wallet that didn't exist, or attempting to supply drugs when in fact the substance was vegetable matter and not a drug. So have a look at this, then go back to the past papers, and then look in the scenarios and go through the past papers and see if you can find examples where you think there's been an attempt. And then think of how you're going to apply when you get the exam paper and you pick your scenario. Remember, think attempt first to pick up those extra marks. Thank you.